In this video, I'll show you how to process wool. On shearing day, we put the sheep on the sheep stand and use hand shears or electric shears to cut off all the sheep's wool. Professional shearers place the sheep on their backside. This way the sheep doesn't get up when they're shearing. Sheep's wool is also called fleece. A sheep's wool grows for 1 year before we shear it. When the wool is grown all year, and before we shear it, we say the sheep is in full fleece. Giving a sheep a haircut isn't much different than giving a person one. After shearing, the fleece is laid out and skirted. Skirting is taking off all the yucky parts of the fleece, such as cauted or matted and felted areas, and areas near the rear end and belly. Sorting is when we feel the fleece with our hands and examine or look at it to determine what areas are softest and what areas are more coarse or rough. We put those sections together for processing because each can produce a yarn that has a purpose. Very soft wool can make a yarn to be used for next to skin clothing. Shetland's wool is generally very soft. We can also sort a fleece into long and short fibers and by color. I wash the wool in small batches using hot tap water. This is called scouring. I use a plastic tub and a detergent made specifically for washing wool. Washing removes all the lanolin and dirt from the fiber. Wool that has not been washed is called raw wool. It can also be called fleece in the grease because of the lanolin's greasy feel. I don't agitate the wool while it's in the hot water because that's how it gets felted, and you can't spin felted wool. When drying, the wool is laid out on beach towel covered drying racks. Sometimes I turn on a small fan to help speed up the drying time. Carding is when you brush the wool or fiber to open it up. This can be done using hand carders or a larger drum carder, as seen on the far right picture. Carding opens the fibers up for spinning, but does not organize them. Once the wool is carded, it's called roving. Combing opens the fiber and organizes it so that the fibers are parallel. Combing results in a fiber preparation called top. Combing helps get extra dirt or vegetable matter out of the fiber. Vegetable matter, or VM, is what we call the grass, little pieces of sticks or grass seed that get stuck in the fleece during the year. Spinning is taking the carded or combed fiber and twisting it into yarn. Drop spindles, like on the far left, and spinning wheels are used for spinning. Drop spindles allow the spinner to move freely when they're spinning. The spindle is suspended and spun using your hands. Spinning wheels are more stationary. The spinner uses their feet to treadle the wheel and their hands to draft the fiber for spinning. The 3 wheels pictured are wheels I have used for spinning. Natural dyes come from nature. Plants and flowers, trees, nuts and fruit, and even bugs can be used to produce a dye which can turn the wool a color. This purple color comes from a bug called cochineal. It's a bug that lives on cacti in the desert. Osage orange sawdust turns white wool yellow, and when over dyeing, can turn a blue wool green. Yarn can be used for weaving, crocheting, knitting, and other crafts. I use my yarn for knitting. Knitting is using knitting needles to create multiple loops of yarn called stitches, interlocked into rows to form a fabric. Processing wool is not difficult to learn. It just takes time and practice. Anyone who wants to learn to process wool by washing it, carding, combing, spinning, dyeing, or knitting can do it. I learned to process wool at the Ozark Folk Center in Mountain View, Arkansas.